Hello, my fellow ETHStakers. I am Invetica.eth, and this is the Validator Workshop Series. Follow along as I set up and configure an Ethereum validator from scratch. Now, for non-technical users, this can be an incredibly intimidating experience, since running a validator requires a deposit of 32 ETH, which the current market value of that is roughly $54,000 as of today, and also requires the use of the command line. Now, for these reasons, we'll be using Samir Esat's guides to set up and configure our validator. By utilizing the guides developed by Samir, we'll be provided in-depth explanations of what we're building, along with the commands to easily copy and paste to the command line. Additionally, Samir's guides are well maintained and updated to include steps to maintain your validator over time. Also, these guides have been funded by the Ethereum Foundation and are considered an industry standard. For this recording, we'll be deploying an Ethereum validator on the Pyrmont testnet. If this is your first time running a validator, it's good practice to start on a testnet for a few weeks to ensure you understand what it is you're doing and verify that the setup is working properly before deploying onto mainnet. Now, we are assuming that you have the necessary prerequisites for running your validator, specifically having already requested at least 33 Goerli ETH, opened up a MetaMask account, and have a dedicated machine for staking with a fresh installation of Ubuntu Desktop. If you don't, the video tutorial for those steps are linked in the description of this video. For this video tutorial, we'll be focusing specifically on configuring and running an Ethereum Geth node, generating and funding the validator keys, importing those keys to the ETH2 client, and finally installing and configuring the ETH2 client itself. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is create a bit of a workstation here for setting up our validator. So I'm going to open up a browser session, pull it over to the side here, and then pull up Samir Esat's guide. Now this is specifically for the Lighthouse client. Now that we have that, I'm going to go over here, and then I'm just going to type the word term, and that will bring up the terminal session. Click on that. And then I'm going to open up the show applications icon in the bottom left hand corner and then type text to bring up a text editor. And these will be the three things that we'll use the most. All right, and one thing to note before we get too ahead of ourselves, all of the links and resources mentioned in this tutorial are all in the description of this video. So if you're following along in step with this guide, and you're not sure where we're getting the information from, just look at the description of this video and everything should be there. All right, let's go ahead and get started with setting up our Teku validator node on the Pyrmont testnet. So let's dive right into the guides here. Just one warning, in fact, it's on the guides as well. This is for the Pyrmont testnet. This is not for mainnet. Please do not send any Ether to the deposit contract or do anything with mainnet assets, as they will not work correctly. So let's go ahead and continue on. One of the steps that we will be skipping, because it's outside of the scope of this validator series, is connecting to the server remotely. Since this is a local environment, this is not applicable to us, so we're going to go ahead and skip. However, the first thing we are going to do is update our server and make sure that we are running all of the latest software. So go ahead and let's copy and paste this into our command line. Just real quick, for those of you who are not familiar with working in the command line, these dollar signs are going to be very common within this guide. This is simply to represent a new command. So we copy everything to the right of the dollar sign. We don't actually copy the dollar sign along with it. So again, let's go ahead and copy and paste this update command. It'll ask us for our administrative password. Let's put that in, and we'll just wait for this to update. All right, that first line is completed. Let's go ahead and run the second command here. And we're all set. So let's go ahead and continue on. We are also going to skip step 2 in securing the server, configuring the firewall, and allowing SSH access. Again, these are outside of the scope of what we're trying to do here. We simply want to spin up a validator and nothing more. However, I highly recommend you look over these steps in the guides and follow them as you would at home. So stopping at the allow go Ethereum portion, what we're going to do here is open up the applicable ports for both the ETH1 and ETH2 node. Starting with copying and pasting this command, we're just going to open up port 30303 and then the port 9000 for Teku. There are commands here for opening up the ports to allow for Grafana and Prometheus, which are monitoring and a dashboard for your validator. Again, this is also outside of the scope of this validator series. The steps are outlined perfectly in these guides. If you want to follow along at home, please do so. All right, so let's clear our screen first by typing the word clear and hitting enter. And now what we're going to do is download and install the Ethereum 1 Geth node. Let's go ahead and start by downloading the program. All right, that's completed downloading. Let's go ahead and update the package. And now we're going to install Geth using the install command. So let's go ahead and copy and paste that over to our command line and hit enter. All right, let's go ahead and clear our screen. Now that Geth has been installed, first, before we start it, what we're going to do is create a background service. This allows the program to run in the background while we process other parts of it, mainly adding the Beaconchain and the validator packages. Also, we don't have to worry about having sessions in our server. With having a background program do this, we just know that everything is running in the background, even after reboots, which is great. So let's go ahead and do that by creating the user. Let's copy this next command by creating the data directory for our Geth node, and then copying this command to give the appropriate permissions for the directory we had just created. Now what we're going to do is create the background service with this command. You'll notice after issuing it, it's going to open up a text editor. That's exactly what we want to see, and we're simply going to copy and paste the configuration listed in the guide by Sumer. So let's go ahead and copy and paste it, and then just briefly update this for formatting's sake. There we go. Now to save this, what we're going to do is hit Control X. It's going to ask us, do we want to save? We'll hit Y for yes, and then enter to complete that transaction. Moving right along, we're going to go ahead and run the reload command. This will apply the changes we had just made. And now what we're going to do is start up our Geth node. Let's first issue the start command, just copying and pasting that. And let's run the status command to verify that it is in fact running correctly. Awesome. So we see it's active and running. Very good. So let's go ahead and hit Control C to exit, and then let's go ahead and clear our screen again. All right. Now what we want to do is run the enable command. This allows the Geth node to restart if and when your server is rebooted. That way you don't have to start everything back up in case there's a reboot. So let's go ahead and run the enable command. And right here is the log or the journal command rather that allows us to peer into the Geth1 node logs. So let's go ahead and make sure those are processing. And it looks like everything is running correctly. So we can see here in the latest logs that our Geth node is looking for a number of peers. Once it has reached the minimum level of peers, it will start processing blocks and syncing with the ETH1 chain. So let's go ahead and leave that running. Let's go ahead and hit Control C and then clear our screen one more time. All right, so we have our Geth node created. The next thing we're going to do is generate our validator keys. So let's go ahead and step right into that. The first thing we want to do is verify that we are in fact in the home directory using this command. And let's install curl. We're going to need that to download the deposit CLI file. All right, that is finished. Now we're just going to copy and paste this entire curl command, and what it's going to do is download the deposit CLI file, which is a command line based wizard that is ultimately going to generate our seed phrase, our deposit file, and our key store file. Looks like that is finished downloading. Let's go ahead and run this command, which unloads or unpacks the files that we had just downloaded. And that is complete. So let's go ahead and change directories into the one that we had just unpacked. Let's go ahead and clear our screen. And let's move on to this next command. Now what we're actually going to do here is run the deposit CLI file. However, let's go ahead and copy and paste this in our text document first, because there's a variable here that we want to change, and that is the number of validators that we need to specifically outline. In our case, it's just going to be one. If, for example, you were going to run multiple validators, say 10 or 20 or whatever the amount is, that's the number you would put there. An item to note here and point out is the chain flag, and we can clearly see that we're running on the Pyrmont testnet. If you were running on any other testnet or mainnet, for example, you would simply change out Pyrmont from mainnet. Let's go ahead and copy and paste the command into our command line. And looks like the program is running. The first thing it's going to ask us to do is generate a password for our key stores. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll confirm the password. And here we have the seed phrase that the program has generated. Let's go ahead and copy and paste that into our text document. Real quick, something to note. You would never, for any reason, share this seed phrase with anyone that isn't you. Effectively, anyone that has access or control of your seed phrase has access and control of your validator and thus your ether. So make sure that you keep it in a safe place and away from others, and also safe that you know exactly where you put it and how to access it. Let's go ahead and hit enter. It's going to ask to confirm the seed phrase that we had written it down correctly. Let's go ahead and copy and paste that. And there we go. That's confirmed. Now the deposit CLI program is generating our key stores and our deposit files, and they have put both of those in this directory location. We're actually going to copy and paste that into our text file because we're going to refer to that later. All right, let's go ahead and hit the enter key and clear our screen. Let's go ahead and continue right along with Somer's guide. One of the things we want to do here is just a quick housekeeping step, and that is to change directories to our home directory and then remove the tar file that we had just downloaded since we're no longer in use of it. All right, the next step is to install all of the prerequisite files to run Teku. So let's go ahead and start doing that. First, starting with the install command here. All right, that's completed. Let's verify that everything worked correctly by just making sure that the Java version renders, and it does in fact. So let's go ahead and clear our screen. Next, what we're going to do is clone and build the Teku client. And let's go ahead and first verify that we are in the home directory by issuing cd space tilde. And then what we're going to do is copy and paste this command into our text document. And what we're going to do is change this version number. So as of the writing of this guide, the Teku client has been updated. So this was initially 20.11. We're going to change this to 21.3.0. Okay, let's go ahead and copy and paste this to our command line. All right, looks like that's completed. Let's go ahead and change it into the Teku directory. And then let's compile using Gradle. We're just going to copy and paste this command here. All right, so let's go ahead and change directories to our home directory and then run this command. Let's go ahead and clear our screen. Next, what we're going to do is configure the beacon node. This is going to be the exact same steps, just like we followed for the ETH1 node. We're going to create a background service and then run that service. So let's first add the user. Let's go ahead and make the data directory. Next, what we're going to do before we copy and paste this command, let's go ahead and put it in our text editor here. And we've got a variable path that we need to update with our specific validator key directory. So we're just going to replace the validator key path with our specific path, and then we're going to copy and paste that in our command line. Great. Let's go ahead and change into the validator key directory. We'll do an ls, which is a list. Looks like everything is in there. and then we're just going to remove our deposit data. So we're going to do sudo rm, and then just double click the deposit data and right click, and then it'll copy it over, and we're all set. Now what we're going to do is create the validator password file, just like we did before. Now what we're going to do is create the validator password file. So let's go ahead and clear our screen and then run the following command. Next, what we're going to do is open up this command, but before we do so, let's copy this into our text editor, and we need to put the name of our JSON file. So we're just going to copy and paste our key store. And then now that we have that made, let's go ahead and paste it into our command line. Now what we're going to do is input the password that we had created during the deposit CLI. So let's go ahead and do that. To save this, we'll just hit Control X, then Y to save, and Enter to save everything else. Next, what we're going to do is set the appropriate permissions. So let's go ahead and copy these commands. And we'll just do an ls to make sure that those permissions rendered correctly, and they did in fact. Okay, wonderful. Now let's go ahead and run the following commands. There we go. Now let's create our Teku configuration file. So let's go ahead and clear our screen and then run this command. Next, what we're going to do is just copy and paste the configuration file provided in the guide. And what we're going to do here first is change the validator graffiti string. This is just an arbitrary string of text that you can put on that will publish once your validator proposes a block. So to save this, let's go ahead and hit Control X, then Y to save, and Enter to get out. Let's clear our screen and then run the following command. We're going to do the same thing here. This is for the background service for Teku. We're just going to copy and paste the configuration and then slightly modify for formatting's sake. And then to save, we'll do Control X, then Y to save, and Enter to exit. And moving right along, the next thing we're going to do is run the following command to reload the system daemon for the changes to take effect into the system. And now what we're going to do is start the Teku service. So let's go ahead and issue the start command. Let's go ahead and issue the status command next to make sure that it is in fact running. And it looks like we're up and running. We can see that we're active and running. So to exit the screen, let's go ahead and hit Control C, and let's go ahead and clear our screen. And continuing on with Samir's guide, let's go ahead and run the enable command. This allows the system to, if your system gets rebooted, this command makes sure that the Teku service also reboots and starts up. So we'll go ahead and run that. Let's confirm that everything is processing correctly by running the journal command. This allows us to peer into the logs. And it looks like we're all set there. And we can see that the client is started. So let's go ahead and hit Control C to exit and then clear our screen. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is fund the validator keys. And we're going to switch over to the website pyrmont.launchpad.ethereum.org. And we're going to hit the Become a Validator button. Now we're going to very quickly go through these screens for the sake of this demonstration. However, if you actually are interested in running a validator node, please make sure that you read and understand these screens as they go in depth in outlining the exact roles, responsibilities, and risks involved with running a validator node. So please make sure that you understand these things. We'll go ahead and click Continue. And we'll just go through and accept these screens. Again, please make sure that you understand all of them. And if you don't and need some clarification, we're always available on the ETHStaker Discord, invite.gg/ETHStaker. All right, here we're going to put in the number of validators that we run. All right, now what we're going to do is supply the number of validators that we're going to run. In our case, it's just going to be the one. The rest of these options can remain the defaults. And then at the bottom here, we're just going to confirm that we have our mnemonic phrase stored in a safe location. All right, now it's time to upload our deposit file. So we can very easily do that by opening up a file manager. It's on the left-hand side here of your Ubuntu Task Manager. Let's double click into the ETH2 deposit CLI folder, double click into the validator keys, and we can see both our deposit data and our key store file. What we're interested in is just uploading the deposit file. Literally just click and drag it into the website and we're set. Let's go ahead and click continue. Now that our deposit data has been uploaded, the last step is to fund or deposit our Gorley ETH to the blockchain. Let's go ahead and connect our wallet. All right, our wallet is connected. Let's go ahead and click continue. And now what we're doing is confirming the summary page. Yes, we want to spin up one validator. We'll be using 32 Gorley ETH. We know, understand, and acknowledge the risks, responsibilities of being a node operator. And now what we're going to do is actually deposit the funds. So let's go ahead and click confirm deposit. It's going to open up our wallet. Yes, we want to deposit 32 Gorley ETH. We are on the Gorley testnet. Go ahead and confirm. The transaction has started. We can watch this using EtherScan. What we'll do is just wait a moment here for the transaction to process. It shouldn't take long at all. All right, and our transaction has processed successfully. So let's go ahead and click continue. And that's it. You are now running your very own Ethereum validator node. Now, a couple items to note here. Again, the ETH1 node needs to properly sync, and then at which time your beacon node will start syncing, and then your validator will start picking up. Something also to note, if we go back to our browser here, let's maximize our browser window and go back to the deposit transaction. Now, one thing I want to point out here is the Beaconchain deposit section where you have your validator public key. This is literally your validator number. So if we click into that, we're going to see a couple things. First, we'll see the status of the deposit that we just made. And right now we're seeing that there's a bit of a wait. So in about 15 to 16 hours, we'll formally see that deposit process on the testnet. And the other thing we can do here is if we copy this address, next what we're going to do is go to the Pyrmont.Beaconchain address, and then let's just copy and paste our validator address in there. And now we can see the full status of where our validator is in relation to the test network. So we can see that our deposit has gone through, and now it's going to take, looks like around 15 hours for our validator to be processed into the network and be contributing attestations and proposing blocks. Now, we did cover a lot of information in this tutorial. However, the steps accomplished today only represent a minimally functioning validator. I would highly recommend following all of the security steps in Sameer's guide. Additionally, if you do want to develop a dashboard to monitor your validator, please feel free to follow the instructions provided by Sameer, which are also in the guides. As always, if you run into any issues at all, the ETHStaker community is here to help. Our goal is to be welcoming first and knowledgeable second. There are no silly questions and no question too small. Simply ask and we'll do our best to help. For more in-depth and advanced features, make sure to check out our monthly ETHStaker Validator Workshops. Details on when those are will be hosted on our website at ethstaker.cc. All right, that's it for me. I'm Envetica.eth, and we'll see you around.